In it here now, what are you gonna do now? I'm gonna bid on here now. Who bid $500,000 bid?
Welcome to the Legacy of Agriculture. This program will explore the past, present, and future of agriculture. We'll look at the people, products, and events that have formed its history. And now with today's guest, your host, Chris Bair.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Bair, the host of Legacy of Agriculture. You know, sometimes we've been doing this
2 years now.
2 years now. This is our second birthday. And I've been thinking about this show a little bit, Josh, and it's exciting because we're over pretty close to 100 episodes. We've had some reruns along the way with some time constraints and just being really super busy in the auction industry with Pifers. But it's wonderful to know that there have been so many people that have participated on the Legacy of Agriculture the last couple of years. And I want to tell you, Josh, that you're the tech guy, right? You're the guy that's putting all of these shows together, putting the YouTube videos up, and you've done an absolutely outstanding job. And thank you for all of your hard work. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But we love Pifers, don't we?
Yeah, they've been a stellar sponsor, and you know, both of us have done work for them now. I worked as a full-time employee for them for several years and then switched over to contract work with them. And you've been one of their auctioneers and their managers for since the Sioux Falls facility has been open. And now we're coming up. It's not just our Legacy of Agriculture second birthday, but it's Pifer's 25th anniversary this year, and with that, it's the Sioux Falls 5th anniversary.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on our pre-harvest sale very soon now, and it's interesting that we've kind of got a lot of these big milestones all within a month of each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of fun to be able to celebrate all of them together. That we've made it this far, and there's definitely hiccups along the way, but for the most part, one of the things that I've really appreciated about this organization is that anytime there's been anything that's been a hiccup, it's been addressed, it's been something that we've done better the next time. And I think that you can see that even in the short 5 years that we've been here, the amount of work and then the quality of the work in the auctions that have happened out of this facility has skyrocketed, and it's amazing to watch.
So I'll give you a little bit of background and a little bit of history, Josh, about the Sioux Falls facility. And we're actually recording in our Southern Dakota Pifers facility just south of Sioux Falls on I-29. And sitting right behind us is a 2013 Camaro with only 10,000 miles on it that we're going to be selling on our August 26th sale. And so those of you that are watching us on YouTube will see, man, those guys are in a different place almost every episode. And the reason is because we're in different places. And sometimes we grab the camera, we grab the GoPro and the microphones, and we just record where we're at because that's where we're at, right? And when we came down here, when Pifers came to Sioux Falls, they had been looking at the Sioux Falls market for quite a few years. And I was actually being in the auction industry at that time for almost 30 years. Andy Murnack reached out to me and we started a conversation, and I was living in the Black Hills. I was living in Spearfish, absolutely beautiful, beautiful home. I was loving life. And Andy calls me and we get together and I go up to an auction that they're having in Montana. And he says, would you be willing to go back to Sioux Falls? And I had spent 10 years in Sioux Falls working in the auction industry. And I said, I left Sioux Falls. And they said, you're going back to Sioux Falls. And I said, no, I'm not going back to Sioux Falls. They said, sure you are. And so I flew up to our Moorhead office and met with Kevin and Steve Link and some other people. And over the course of conversation, they says, we want you to move back to Sioux Falls and we're going to build a facility, but we don't know the Sioux Falls market. Help us out. And so through that conversation, through most of the day that day, we laid out a plan and some of the ideas and some of the things that I had learned about the Sioux Falls market and that Sioux Falls region. And this region for Pifers is an outstanding region. And the reason is because I had identified 15 years ago that I-29 connects Winnipeg to Kansas City and ultimately Dallas, Texas, from the north to the south or the south to the north, whichever direction you're going. And I-90 connects Chicago basically to Seattle, Washington. And so you have two major thoroughfares to the west of I-29, huge cattle country. To the east of I-29, you got some of the best row crop and animal populations in the nation. And as I had observed the Sioux Falls marketplace, I thought there's not a better place in this world to start a good brick and mortar facility than the Sioux Falls region. And that's really what brought us down here to the Sioux Falls area. But
well, with that, I did want to say and add one thing. What's been interesting about what you say with our connections to the entire nation is that you see it in our buyer list. When you open up our little invoices tab at the end of an auction and you're just scrolling through and looking where the tractors are going and the cultivators are going, we've had stuff up to Canada. We've had stuff down to Mexico. We've had stuff out to the coast. We've had stuff sold overseas. So pairing the internet with it has helped, obviously, but I do think that people look at our location and understand that it's the type of freight that's easy to get to and that's easy to transport. And I think that makes it easier for them to click bid just one more time.
And that's exactly right. At the end of every auction, Josh, we as a team here in the Sioux Falls region, we sit down and we have a meeting and we talk in detail about the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's one of those meetings where we're in a safe zone, and if you're mad about something, let it rip. We'll deal with it. We put it all back together, and at the end of the meeting, we all leave as friends again and as more importantly as team members. And having said that, we're observing as we look at the statistics, and we are seeing the buyer and the bidding reports that come back to us from both the Equipment Facts platform and from the Pfeiffer's platform, is that buyer base is growing substantially. It's not uncommon for us to be selling items into Florida or Alabama or Georgia or Texas, California, even up in the northwest corner of the United States. Lots of stuff that we had bidders from Oregon, from Washington, from Idaho, and the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, all of those states. As we go to the east, it's been a great market. It's been a wonderful market. But I think the thing that's most commendable, Josh, is that agriculture, and really, as we're celebrating the second year of the legacy of agriculture, the purpose and the reason for the legacy of agriculture is a celebration for agriculture itself. And agriculture is a very, very interesting industry. It's an industry that was started 10,000 years before Christ. And it's one of the oldest industries in the world and will continue to be obviously very important because that's how we eat, right? And so, but agriculture is changing very, very fast, and technology is driving a lot of those changes, and the people and the amount of people that are engaged in agriculture is changing substantially. And so it's very important to remember that agriculture is number one in the world because we all eat. I mean, a lot of people get wound up about agriculture and this and that, but at the end of the day, most all of us in the world have three squares. And I mean, this shirt's pretty tight on me, so it's very obvious that I've been the recipient of agriculture for the last umpteen years. So anyways, folks, we're going to be right back.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeiffers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeiffer's. Nobody does it better.
Hey folks, Chris Bair, your host of The Legacy of Agriculture. We're back. Josh Erickson, thank you for co-hosting with me today. We don't have a guest, we're co-hosting, right?
Yeah, this is kind of one of those fun shows where we get to lean back a little bit and, there's a little bit less prep work that goes into it. And we kind of get to have just a conversation of reflection on, I guess, the purpose of the show, because over our 2 years, it's changed a little bit. It's morphed. We've had several guests from different fields, and it's nice to kind of be able to just kick back and reflect a little bit. So, yeah, I guess one of the things that's been probably the biggest thing to get used to for me is just some of the heavy hitters that we've had on our show. And agriculture is one of those fields that, at least when I was growing up in town, right, it was something that was seen almost as boring, right? You go to high school with kids and it's, oh yeah, well, it's farming. We're in South Dakota. People are farmers. It's almost an everyday part of life. But one of the things that this show has opened my eyes to specifically is the variety of the jobs that exist in agriculture and some of the people who are really moving the needle in agriculture. We've talked a lot about technology, and we've had guests on this show who have been CEOs of companies that produce and distribute potato chips all across the country. We've had guests on this show who sell millions upon millions of dollars of machinery out of their facilities, right? And we've also had guests who remember their farm when their dad or their granddad was farming with a horse-drawn plow. So there's such a variety in this time period. I guess one of the questions I would have for you is, what drove you initially to try and start this show? We've talked about it kind of here and there. We've had short little segments on it, but I'd really like to, in this segment of our show, dive deep. The legacy of agriculture as a show, why is it important? What is it adding to the conversation?
Well, for me, agriculture is not a job. It's a passion. It's a love. It's a way of life. I was raised on a farm. I loved being on the farm. There wasn't room for me on the farm. I was the youngest, second to the youngest in my family. I had family members that had farmed with my dad for quite a few years. And so in order to make that integration, it just wasn't an option. And even though production agriculture, producing crops, I loved to watch, there were segments of it that I loved more than others. I was raised on an irrigated farm where we had center pivots and we had electric pumps, and electricity scared me to death. And I didn't like the chemicals on the farm. I just, for some reason, I just didn't like the fear of spilling chemicals on me or whatever that was. And so when I got into college, I knew that I wanted to stay in agriculture at all costs, but my real passion was in machinery. I love machinery and I love land. I loved real estate. And my granddad had been a farmer, and when he retired, he got into the land side of it and did a little bit of buying and selling. And I was always intrigued with that, but I love machinery. And so when I was in an ag business program at Ricks College in Rexburg, Idaho, and I loved the program. I loved everything about it. I was in some mechanics programs, and I was taking both business and mechanics classes, and I discovered that mechanics were some of the hardest working people that there are. It's hard work, and it's not fun work, and it's hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter. And I was a little bit too much of a pansy to be a mechanic, but I loved the business side of it, and I loved the pace of being engaged. And I kind of by morph got into the auction industry. I had dabbled with it, and I decided that that's where I wanted to make my career, that was where I could be fully engaged with machinery. And then later in my career, I got my real estate licenses, and I'm licensed as a real estate agent in a couple of states and soon to be another state. And I love the land side of it too. But the way the legacy of agriculture came about was as here when we started the Sioux Falls region for Pfeiffer's. I was helping a customer bring in some equipment to one of our auctions. I was driving a combine. It was about a 4-hour drive, give or take. And I was driving in, and I was thinking about all of the amazing people that I had met in my career and was meeting in my career, and they all had a story. And through technology, we're starting to lose those handwritten journals or those handwritten stories and all of that stuff in preserving our history is being stored on electronics. And so I felt, my gift back to agriculture, as well as has treated me over all these years, is that I want to have these people's stories told. And as you mentioned in the first segment, Josh, the legacy of agriculture has morphed a lot. It's a lot to bring somebody onto a show every single week, but that's really the low-lying fruit for the legacy of agriculture. But also we have learned that on this platform, sometimes we do market reports. You'll find that Andy Murnack and Jeff Polk and some of those guys come on a fairly regular basis to talk about, hey, what's going on? Because that's valuable information to our producers today. But also we've learned a lot about what's made agriculture great. And if you remember early on, about 18 months ago, we did a show on the invention of barbed wire. And I remember sitting on the couch at home, and I remember I was kind of just scanning through Google. I was looking at I think what it did is it kind of became a cool inventions in agriculture, whatever it is. And I became very intrigued with barbed wire and the invention of barbed wire. And if everybody wants to listen to a great show, go back into the fall 2 years ago, and we did an entire show on the invention of barbed wire and how that barbed wire completely changed not only the face of agriculture, but just the transportation industry, and what that has done. And so it's been an amazing learning platform. And there's a lot of things that are hilarious about agriculture. For example, the FFA, and we talked a little bit about this in a show. I'll ask you some questions, Josh, about agriculture and see if you know.
Well, this is fun because I'm not someone who's from agriculture. I'm from the city.
All right.
So let's see how good I can do, because I've been in this world for a few years now.
How fast can a pig run?
Oh, let's go 15 miles an hour.
A pig can run a 7-minute mile.
Really?
I can't run a 7-minute mile.
Maybe if I was getting chased, but I'll be honest with you, that'd be a pretty high bar for me these days.
Did you know that bananas are berries?
I did actually know that one.
But strawberries aren't.
Yes, I did know that.
Even though it's called strawberries, strawberries are not a berry. But a banana is.
And here's the thing. I couldn't tell you the reason for that. I just knew that fact. I have no idea why that's the case, what the classification is.
According to the FFA, what's the longest recorded flight of a chicken?
Ooh, 30 feet.
No, longest recorded flight, time-wise.
Okay, let's go 30 seconds.
13 seconds.
13,
yep.
Okay.
The FFA says chickens aren't known for being good flyers. While they can fly short distances, it's unlikely to see one soaring above the treetops. Therefore, it should be no surprise that the longest recorded flight by a chicken is just 13 seconds. Even more interestingly, the longest recorded distance a chicken has flown was 301.5 feet.
Really? That's quite the distance.
Chickens don't fly.
That time. Yeah, but still. That's enough to get it away from a fox, man.
Yeah, well, that's true. How long does it take to grow pineapple?
Oh, 8 months.
Nope, it takes 2 years.
Really?
For one pineapple to grow. Yep, it says pineapples may seem to come by when the grocery stores are stocked, but the process from field to plate is much longer than you might expect. It takes between 18 and 36 months from the time they're planted for pineapple plants to yield fruit so you can harvest and consume.
That is something that's interesting about agriculture is most people in this part of the world think about it as corn and soybeans.
Yeah.
But it really does. And I've been getting to know a family out of Artesian, and one of the things that they talk about is they're honey farmers, which is something that I just never considered. It's amazing how many things that this field actually does touch.
Speaking of honey, and we're getting down to the end of our second segment, it takes one hive of bees 55,000 miles of flight to produce 1 pound of honey.
Really?
Yep. 55,000 miles for 1 pound of honey.
That is something else.
So that's why I say in during the show that agriculture is so interesting. These statistics are absolutely amazing. And in our third segment, we're going to get into 15 things that you probably didn't know about agriculture, and we'll go over some of those items, and we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction Realty and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeiffers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeiffers. Nobody does it better.
Folks, we're back with the Legacy of Agriculture. My co-host, Josh Erickson, has joined me here today. Josh, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. It's pretty early in the morning this morning to be recording a show.
A little bit. Yeah, we're pre-recording for our second anniversary. You know, the show's been on the air for 2 years now, and that's a pretty exciting milestone for us, especially considering, you know, when you start out, it's not like we knew what we were doing. So
actually, I'm not really sure we knew what we were doing, but WNX Radio has been a great sponsor of ours and a great help in getting our show launched and getting this out. So
one of our guests on the show in the past was Jim Reimler down there at WNAX, and just want to give him a huge shout out because at least at the beginning of the process and through the whole thing, he has been absolutely instrumental to this show. And we don't say thank you to Jim enough, but I really think that he deserves that. So.
He's a great guy. So back to interesting things you should know about agriculture.
Okay.
Do you know that agriculture is the largest employer in the world?
I'd believe that.
Yeah. Think about it. Think about all the acres, billions of acres, not just millions, but probably billions of acres that are farmed in the world. It is the largest employer.
Well, also you think about supply and demand. There's always demand for food. You know, it's a built-in customer base.
It's interesting that you say the word food, because the second thing that you should know about agriculture is nearly everything we eat and wear is a product of agriculture. Think about all the different things that soybeans are used for.
Well, and, you know, anytime you walk down the grocery store aisle anymore, you can look at the list of ingredients and stuff, and it's all tied back to the fields. You know, everything is.
So this is an older report that I got, but it said farmers must increase their food production by 70% to cater to the growing population in 2025. Okay, so we're in 2025, and this report is about 10 years old. So the thing that is vitally important for agriculture is that even though God is not producing more acres, we have to be more efficient. We have to produce more with less. And technology and knowledge is allowing that to happen. But we have to have more, right? Mm-hmm. All right. 1 acre of farming land is equivalent to the size of an American football field.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep. I'm not really sure how wide a football field is, but it's 100 yards long, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yep. Next one. 43% of global agriculture consists of women.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Women represent a significant percentage, around 43% of the global agricultural sector in developing countries. Women are responsible for 60 to 80% of food production in many farming communities. They serve as experts in farming with a lot of knowledge in a wide range of crop varieties.
I think that's very true even in our part of the world. I mean, I look at the relatives I have farming, and, you know, my uncle handles a fair amount of the feed work, but my aunt is almost exclusively the one who cares for the calves, who helps make sure that those babies are healthy and that they're growing into a product that is able to be marketable. And trust me, if you remove that aspect of farming, you're not going to have healthy cows.
And this is a statistic, according to Chris, is I'll bet you of that 43% of women, they do about 80% of the work.
Oh, yeah.
Organic, number 6, organic farming produces 10 times the profit of conventional farming.
It has been a growing area, and it wouldn't surprise me if that one has changed over these last 10 years, because more and more people are being more conscientious of what they're putting in their body, and not without fault. You know, you look at some of the chemicals we were putting on stuff back in the 60s and 70s before any real regulation was put on, and it's maybe we shouldn't have been eating that, you know?
You think?
So, no, I
think
get
back
that.
to the old days of the 2,4-D and some of those early chemicals, Sencor and some of those other chemicals, and I thought, I'm not sure that was pretty dicey back in the late 80s, early 90s. All right. The majority of farms worldwide are family owned. Approximately 56% of total food production comes from family-owned farms. Small families run over 57 million farms across the world.
I'd be curious, do you think that number has gone up or down since COVID? Because COVID saw a mass migration to the countryside, at least from the cities, but it also saw some record high land prices that kind of put a lot of this corporate farming into reality, you know?
Number 8, a huge percentage of farms are high-tech. That was very interesting. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to go back to a previous show that we had talked about some other percentages. It said farmers are a lot more high-tech than people generally perceive. It is no longer how it was taught to us in historical book, where all tasks involve manual labor. Over the years, farming practices have evolved. Agritech has become huge, and farmers have invested in high-tech machinery to make their lives easier and increase their production and processes. And I will tell you that especially in the last 20 years, as I have watched the farm equipment and the technology that is now in every piece of farm equipment, combines, balers, cotton harvesters, cotton pickers, even the technology that goes into simple things like swathers and balers, it is crazy the amount of technology that it takes to produce a farm. But that's allowing us to increase our efficiencies in agriculture and produce more with less.
You know, I watched a movie called Interstellar that's set, it's a science fiction movie, and it's set in the near future. And one of the things that was kind of fun about that is they have autonomous combines in that. And you did a show with someone who was all working on autonomous feed trucks. And it was one of those moments of like this thing that when I was in high school, when this movie came out, this was science fiction. It's very much a reality nowadays. We have that technology, and it exists specifically in the same world that my grandpa farmed an open station tractor with, just a little bit down the road.
Well, and this technology has, I want to back up one step about a statistic that was shocking to me that the USDA put out a couple of years ago, is they said that only 86% of the farms in the United States have internet access. Now, I don't know how they define internet access, whether that's just the access in their shops or offices. But remember, we were talking about missing a certain percentage of the population on online-only auctions, and that not everybody had the technology for online auction. And that's one of the many reasons why we're continuing to pursue the live auctions, is to completely close that gap. But technology, you'd be surprised at a handful of people that don't have any technology or are not using technology in their farming practices. Folks, we're going to be right back with our fourth and final segment of the Legacy of Agriculture.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction Realty and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeiffer's.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeiffer's. Nobody does it better.
Hey folks, we're back with the fourth and final segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. Josh Erickson is my co-host today, and we were going over 15 interesting statistics, and for time's sake, there's two more that I want to go over. And one is one of the statistics, one of the 15 is that there's a global shortage of people working in the agricultural sector, meaning there's more work in agriculture than there are workers. And that's kind of hard to believe, but it really is a fact. And that's been a fact that for many, many years is if you're ever looking for a job, agriculture is always looking for people to come to work, whether it's in seed, whether it's in production agriculture, whether it's in processing, whatever it is, agriculture is always looking for workers.
And, one of the questions we ask at the end of every show is, if there's one thing you could tell young people in agriculture, what would it be? And over again, we do hear that is, we find yourself people who will teach you because they're out there. And I think that that's very true. There's a lot of folks who have this desire to share their knowledge, especially in the agriculture field. I think because it's such a team effort to get crops out of the ground and to get animals to market, there is that attitude that's almost ubiquitous. It's almost everywhere in the field, where it's people in agriculture want to share their knowledge. So if you are interested in getting into it, it's something that we hear over and over again on this show.
Yep. The last statistic, or the last thing that was interesting in this article, and I want to say that this I took this off the internet from agriculture recruitment specialist, and the last and the 15th point that they made was around 9.2% of the world population, around 9.2% of the total population of the world is food insecure. And what that means is despite there being enough food for the global population, around 829 million people, almost 930 million people still go hungry, and around 9.2% of the people in the world are food insecure. So almost 10% of the world population doesn't have enough food for one reason or another. Sometimes it's economic reasons. Sometimes it's availability, getting food to the right areas or in the right regions of the world. There can be a lot of different reasons, but that's a sad statistic to think that as much food is produced, especially here in the United States, there's still almost 10% of the population that's food insecure, and that there are people that go hungry.
And, after COVID, I had a friend of mine who we were on the phone, and they mentioned that they were going to a local food bank. And there are areas in this country that we're very blessed with to have that try and fill that gap here, but that's not the case everywhere. Yeah. And so that I agree with you. That is a sad thing.
So what I have to say, Josh, is it's really good to know. And today we learned how fast a pig can run and how far a chicken can fly.
Yeah.
Right?
30 feet and a 7-minute mile, which is still, or 13 feet and a 7-minute mile.
Where else do you get that kind of information?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Is it useless information? Or is it
probably. But
I guess if you're chasing a pig that got out of the pen, you want.
Or if you're getting chased by a pig, you better figure out how to run faster than a 7-minute mile.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, you had some questions to come to the last 5 minutes of the show. You had some questions that you wanted to ask, Josh.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up our show today, we're getting close to our second year, or this is our second year anniversary. The two questions I would have for you, one would be is, what has this show, The Legacy of Agriculture, taught you specifically? And maybe let's make it easy. Boil it down to one lesson for me.
Everybody has a story, whether you are a corporate CEO, executive, whether you're a corporate board member, or whether you are working on a farm somewhere, everybody has a story. And lots of people are extremely camera shy, and their story, if you were to ask them, their response would be, it's none of your business, or I don't have a story. But that's not the truth, because you take anybody who is an adult, whether they're 18 years old or whether they're 88 years old, they have a story, and they've been through probably two things in their life. They've probably been through a very, very rough time in their life, and they learned a lot, and they've had good times in their life too, that they have very fond memories. And so really that was foundational for the legacy of agriculture, is learning those stories. I'm going to do a show with a gentleman that is 5th generation farmer here in South Dakota, and his great grandfather was farming in the territories before South Dakota was a state. He was here in the I might get corrected on this when I do the show, but between 1850 and 1860. And so that's a great story. That's a very interesting story. And we had sold 2 parcels of land that he had bought for his a grandson, 1 parcel for a grandson and 1 parcel for a granddaughter, in the hopes that this legacy can continue for that family. And the legacy of agriculture is not about, it's about the legends in agriculture. It's about the people in agriculture in the past, present, and in the future of agriculture. And that's why we kind of vacillate back and forth, is sometimes we're talking about the future, and sometimes we're talking about the past, and sometimes we're talking about current events.
And then the final thing I would have for you, you really do, you cover a broad range of subjects. You chat with folks who are in the cellular world, working on tractor communications. You've talked with folks who are selling combines. You've talked with folks who, like you mentioned, are several generations down the line of farmers. If you, to borrow a phrase of yours from past shows, if you pull out your crystal ball and look at the future of the legacy of agriculture, what can our listeners look forward to in the next year of the show?
A lot of the same thing. For example, we're going to do another show in the future talking about telecommunications. That's something that's present and in the future. I sat in a tractor here a couple of years ago with a very good friend of mine as he was planting, and the amount of technology, the telephones, the iPads, the monitors, the screens, all of the technology that was going on was actually mind-boggling to me. And what it dawned on me was that telecommunications is very, very important to agriculture. And it will be extremely important to agriculture as the technology continues to change. And as we get more technology, it's not a matter of if we're going to have more technology, it's how fast it's going to come to us. And even in the auction industry, the technology has changed. The amount of buyers that we are reaching now as an auction company is staggering, and it's because of technology. It's because of social media platforms and how fast that technology is changing. Look at what AI is doing in a positive manner for agriculture. And so we're going to talk more and more about technology, which I struggle with technology. Sometimes I have a hard time getting my emails open in the morning, but the technology is a big player.
And, we're almost at the end. I do want to say a thank you to you for hosting the show, but also a thank you to our listeners who've been with us for 2 years now. And as we continue, we've got some fun stuff in the bank, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of guests we have with the next 52 weeks. So.
Yep. Well, thanks for putting it together, Josh, and we appreciate you. You're doing a great job.
Awesome. Folks, we'll see you next Saturday.
In here now, what are you gonna do now? I'm gonna be on here now. Who bid $500,000 bid?
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Legacy of Agriculture with Chris Bair, sponsored by Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Call Pfeiffer's at 605-836-2277.